They say the concept of a twin flame is both the most beautiful and the most dangerous thing you can ever stumble across in your lifetime. It's that idea that somewhere out there exists another soul, one that doesn't just complement you, but mirrors you, challenges you, exposes you, and in a way destroys you so that you can finally rebuild yourself into who you were meant to be. And whether you believe in destiny or psychology or a strange mix of both, the truth is the twin flame idea has haunted countless people. And if you've ever experienced it, you know it's not just some fluffy internet term, it's something that shakes you at the core. At first glance, the concept sounds dreamy. Imagine meeting someone who feels like home, yet also like the biggest fire you've ever touched. Someone who pulls you in with such magnetic force that no amount of logic, no amount of distance, and no amount of denial can really make you forget them. That's how people describe their twin flame. Not just love at first sight, but recognition. A recognition so intense that you feel like you've known them across lifetimes, even if you've only just locked eyes in this one. And for a while, it feels almost too good to be true. But here's the catch. Twin flames aren't about comfort. They aren't about happily ever after fairy tales. They're about growth. And growth doesn't always feel good. In fact, it often feels like being ripped apart. Because when you meet your twin flame, you're not just meeting someone who loves you, you're meeting the mirror of your deepest wounds, your unresolved traumas, your hidden shadows. They reflect back to you everything you don't want to face. And that's why it feels so intense. It's not because the universe is rewarding you with a perfect partner, it's because the universe is daring you to evolve. Now, psychologically speaking, this is fascinating because when people describe twin flames, a lot of what they're actually describing lines up with what therapists might call trauma bonding, projection, or even intense attachment activation. You see, our subconscious minds carry all these unresolved patterns, usually rooted in childhood, the way we were loved, the way we were abandoned, the way we were seen or ignored. And when we meet someone who triggers those same patterns, but with an intensity that makes us feel alive, it feels cosmic. It feels destined. But from a psychological lens, it's your nervous system recognizing something familiar and mistaking it for fate. That doesn't mean twin flames aren't real. It just means that reality is layered. On a spiritual level, you could say that souls really do reincarnate together to push each other toward healing. On a psychological level, you could say that your brain urged to chase what feels familiar, even if it's painful. And maybe the truth is both. Maybe the spiritual and the psychological are just two languages describing the same phenomenon. Think about it. You meet this person and instantly the attraction is undeniable. It's not gradual like other relationships, it's explosive. It's like a wildfire. You can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't think straight. Your entire being is consumed with them. Some people even describe physical symptoms, heart racing, body heat, energy surges, and science can chalk that up to hormones, dopamine, adrenaline. But spiritually, people call it soul recognition. It's like your higher self is screaming, pay attention, this is important. And that's when the real game begins. Because unlike soulmates who are there to comfort and uplift you, twin flames often arrive to shake you awake. They show you the parts of yourself you've been running from. Maybe it's your insecurity. Maybe it's your fear of abandonment. Maybe it's your tendency to control or your avoidance of intimacy. Whatever your core wound is, they're going to reflect it right back at you, sometimes ruthlessly. And you'll find yourself asking, how can someone who feels so right also hurt so much? This is where psychology adds another layer. In attachment theory, for example, people with anxious or avoidant attachment styles tend to attract each other. The anxious one craves closeness, the avoidant one craves distance, and together they create this push-pull dynamic that feels addictive. The highs are euphoric, the lows are devastating. And that cycle, closeness followed by withdrawal, followed by reconciliation, trains your brain to associate love with chaos. It's literally like a drug. And twin flame relationships often follow this exact cycle. The honeymoon, the triggering, the separation, the chase, the reunion. Spiritually, people call this the twin flame journey. First, there's the recognition, that intense spark where you just know. Then comes the honeymoon, the euphoric stage where everything feels magical. But soon after, the shadows come up. Old wounds get triggered, fights erupt, misunderstandings multiply. And before you know it, one of you runs. That's why they call it the runner-chaser dynamic. One person feels overwhelmed and distances themselves, while the other clings on desperately, trying to fix it. And both roles are equally painful because they're both rooted in fear. What's wild is that this pattern can repeat for months, years, even decades. People separate, move on, date others, but somehow they circle back to their twin flame. Or at least, they feel like they do. And the debate rages on. Is this destiny pulling them back together, or is it just an unresolved attachment wound that won't let go? Maybe it's both. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. Twin flames aren't always meant to be together. In fact, some would argue that the purpose of a twin flame isn't union, it's transformation. They come into your life to spark the deepest healing you've ever done. And sometimes that healing requires you to let them go. Because the point isn't to merge with them forever. The point is to finally merge with yourself, to integrate your shadow, to heal your wounds, to awaken to your higher self. Think of it like a mirror. If you look into a mirror and see dirt on your face, it's not the mirror's job to clean you. It's your job. The mirror just reveals what's already there. That's what a twin flame does. They show you the parts of yourself you can no longer ignore. And if you mistake the mirror for the cure, you'll stay stuck in the cycle forever. Of course, that doesn't make the pull any less real. Even if you understand the psychology, even if you know the spiritual theory, the reality is it feels impossible to let go. And that's because twin flame connections activate the deepest layers of your psyche. They awaken your inner child, your longing for wholeness, your craving for something bigger than yourself. And when you project all of that onto one person, it feels like they are your destiny. But in truth, they're just the doorway. The destination is you. And maybe that's the paradox of twin flames. They feel like the love of your life, but they might actually be the catalyst for you to finally fall in love with yourself. When people talk about twin flames, they almost always end up talking about the runner and the chaser. And honestly, this is where most of the pain comes from, because no matter how magical the beginning feels, almost every twin flame story has that moment where everything falls apart. One person feels overwhelmed, suffocated, terrified of the intensity, and they run. They might block you, ghost you, or suddenly act like you don't exist. And the other person, desperate to make sense of it, becomes the chaser. They cling, they text, they wait, they analyze every little sign, convinced that if they just hold on tighter, things will go back to the way they were. And this cycle can be brutal. Now, from a spiritual lens, people will say the runner is avoiding their shadow. The connection is so intense, so mirror-like, that they can't handle what's being reflected back at them. They're not ready to face themselves, so they run. The chaser, on the other hand, is forced to confront their own attachment wounds, the fear of abandonment, the inability to let go, the need for external validation. In other words, both roles are just different sides of the same coin. The runner runs from themselves, the chaser clings to avoid facing themselves, and both are learning lessons that can only be learned through the fire of separation. But here's where psychology makes things clearer. The runner-chaser pattern looks almost identical to what happens in anxious-avoidant attachment dynamics. The avoidant partner pulls away when things get too intense, while the anxious partner panics and holds on tighter. And the more the anxious partner chases, the more the avoidant runs. It's not just emotional, it's biological. The anxious person's nervous system is in fight or flight, flooded with cortisol, obsessed with restoring closeness. The avoidant person's nervous system, on the other hand, is overwhelmed by too much closeness. So their brain screams for space. Oop. The more one pursues, the more the other withdraws. It feels personal, but it's really just two nervous systems at war. And yet, when you're inside it, it doesn't feel like psychology. It feels cosmic. You'll see angel numbers everywhere. 1111, 222, 444. You'll dream of them. Think of them constantly. Feel their energy even when they're gone. Some people swear they can feel their twin flames' emotions in real time, like a telepathic connection. And maybe that's real, or maybe your brain, wired for pattern recognition, is searching for meaning to soothe the chaos. Either way, the effect is the same. You're convinced this person is tied to your soul. But here's the paradox. The separation stage, as devastating as it feels, is actually where the real transformation happens. Because when the runner is gone, the chaser is left with nothing but themselves. And at first, it's unbearable. You feel abandoned, betrayed, like your very soul has been ripped in half. You replay every memory, wondering what you did wrong, why they left, how you can fix it. And yet, over time, something shifts. You realize that what you're really chasing isn't them, it's the part of yourself you've been neglecting. The love, the validation, the safety you thought only they could give you. It's been missing within you all along. And that realization hits like a tidal wave. The connection was never about completing you. It was about showing you where you were already whole, but didn't believe it. That's why twin flames feel like both a blessing and a curse. They force you to stop outsourcing your self-worth. They strip away every illusion you've built about love being someone else's responsibility. And that's why the separation stage feels so excruciating. It's breaking the addiction to the other person so you can finally come home to yourself. This is where the concept of inner union comes in. Spiritually, people say you can't truly unite with your twin flame until you've first united with yourself. That means healing your shadow, balancing your masculine and feminine energies, learning to sit with your own pain instead of running from it. Psychologically, it's about integrating the parts of yourself you've disowned, your fears, your needs, your vulnerabilities, and realizing they don't make you unlovable. They make you human. And ironically, once you begin that process, the energy shifts. The chasing stops. You stop obsessing, stop waiting for texts, stop looking for signs. Not because you don't care anymore, but because you finally realize that your life doesn't depend on this person being there. And when that happens, one of two things occurs. Either your twin flame, sensing the shift, comes back because the energy is no longer suffocating, or they don't, because their role in your story was never about permanence. And either way, you win, because the point was never reunion, it was rebirth. From a psychological angle, this mirrors what happens when an anxious attachment style starts to heal. You move from hypervigilance to security. You stop trying to earn love and instead start embodying love. That shift is magnetic. It changes how you show up in every relationship, not just with your twin flame. Suddenly, friendships feel lighter, romantic connections feel healthier. You're no longer repeating the same patterns because you faced the wound at the root. And spiritually, people describe this as the alchemy of twin flames. The fire that burned you down is the same fire that forged you into gold. You come out of it stronger, softer, more awake. You realize that the love you thought lived only in them has always lived in you. And in that moment, whether or not they return doesn't even matter because you've already been given the gift, awakening. If the separation stage is where you're torn apart, then reunion, whether temporary or lasting, is where you realize why it all had to happen. And here's the thing, reunion doesn't always look like a movie ending. It's not always dramatic music, running into each other's arms, and living happily ever after. Sometimes it's subtle, a text out of the blue, a chance meeting, a dream that feels more real than waking life. Sometimes it's not even physical, it's an energetic recognition that the bond has shifted, softened, evolved. Spiritually, reunion is described as the stage of surrender. After all the chaos, after the chasing and the running, after the desperate need to control the outcome, you finally let go. Not in a bitter way, but in a free way. You stop demanding that things go a certain way, and instead you trust the process. You realize that if you are meant to come together, nothing can stop it. And if you're not, nothing can force it. That's surrender, not giving up, but opening up. Psychologically, this stage mirrors what happens when people move from insecure attachment to secure attachment. You're no longer ruled by panic or avoidance. Instead, you can sit in uncertainty without falling apart. You can love without clinging, connect without losing yourself, and give space without feeling abandoned. That balance, the ability to stay grounded in your own worth while being open to someone else, is what makes reunion even possible. Because without that inner shift, you just fall back into the same runner chaser cycle again. And here's the paradox. Reunion often happens when you've finally made peace with the idea that you don't need it, when you stop obsessing, when you stop waiting, when you start living fully for yourself. That's when the energy clears. That's when the connection can return in a healthier form because it's no longer about filling a void. It's about two whole people meeting, not two halves grasping for completion. Some twin flames do come back together in a permanent, lifelong union. They've both faced their shadows, healed their wounds, and are ready to grow in the same direction. That kind of reunion feels different. It's not about intensity anymore, it's about stability. The fire is still there, but now it's steady, like a flame that warms instead of one that consumes. But not all twin flames reunite in the physical sense, and that doesn't mean the connection failed. Sometimes the highest purpose of the bond was never partnership, it was transformation. They came into your life not to stay, but to ignite. They awakened you to yourself, and then the rest of the journey was yours to walk. In that sense, even without reunion, the mission is complete. And maybe that's the deepest spiritual lesson of all. Love isn't about possession, it's about expansion. The twin flame isn't the destination, they're the spark that showed you the fire you've carried all along. When people talk about twin flames, they often frame it as the ultimate love story. But if you look closer, you'll realize it's not just about romance, it's about evolution. Spiritually, twin flames are said to have a mission that goes beyond the personal. Their union, whether physical or energetic, is meant to raise consciousness, to ripple healing, compassion, and awareness out into the world. That's why the connection feels so much bigger than the two of you. It is bigger than the two of you. Think of it like this. Most relationships are classrooms. You meet, you learn, you grow, you graduate. Twin flames, on the other hand, are initiations. They don't just teach you lessons, they transform the entire way you see yourself, love, and life. That transformation doesn't stop with you, it changes how you show up in the world. Maybe you become more compassionate. Maybe you start creating, writing, helping, or leading in ways you never imagined. The energy of the twin flame connection doesn't stay contained, it spreads. From a psychological perspective, you could compare this to post traumatic growth. When people survive something deeply painful, they often come out the other side with a renewed sense of meaning, stronger resilience, and a deeper appreciation for life. The twin flame journey, with all its intensity and heartbreak, can act as that catalyst. It breaks you down, yes, but it also expands you. And and in that expansion, you find not only yourself, but also your role in something greater. And here's the paradox. Even if your twin flame isn't physically in your life, the mission continues. The energy of what they awakened in you doesn't disappear, it becomes fuel for your own path. Maybe your purpose is to help others heal, to create something that inspires, to live in a way that radiates authenticity. Whatever it is, the fire they lit inside you keeps burning, and it keeps guiding you. This is why so many people say that meeting their twin flame was both the hardest and the best thing that ever happened to them. Hardest because it shattered everything they thought they knew about love and security. Best because it gave them a sense of depth, meaning, and power they could never have found otherwise. In that way, the twin flame journey is less about finding the one and more about becoming the one, the fullest, most awake version of yourself. And ironically, when you reach that place, you realize that the love you were chasing has been within you all along. The twin flame didn't give it to you, they showed you where it lived. So, the higher purpose of twin flames? To awaken, to evolve, to remind us that love isn't just a feeling between two people, it's a force that transforms everything it touches. So, whether your twin flame comes back, whether they stay gone, whether you're still unsure if they even were your twin flame, the truth remains the same. You are whole. You always have been. And maybe that's what they were sent to remind you of. And with that, I'll leave you with this. Twin flames are not the end of your story. They're the spark that lights it. The rest, the growth, the healing, the love you create, that's all you.